Most women over 60 don't realize it, but their closet may be quietly adding years to their appearance. It isn't about wrinkles, silver hair, or even makeup. It's the subtle choices in clothing that can make you look older than you feel. Studies on perception show that people often make style judgments in less than 7 seconds, and clothing can account for nearly 60% of that impression. That means the very cardigan or pair of shoes you thought was safe may be dimming your energy and presence. The shocking truth is that what you wear can either amplify your vitality or erase it, without you even noticing. Imagine opening your closet tomorrow and discovering that 5 simple swaps could change the way others see you, and the way you see yourself, overnight. These aren't runway tricks or fast fashion trends. They're timeless adjustments designed to help women over 60 reclaim confidence, presence, and elegance with ease. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how to replace outdated pieces with ones that radiate life, command attention, and still feel comfortable. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Style Secrets tailored specifically for women over 60. Your transformation could start today, with nothing more than opening your closet door. Meet Thalassa Merrick, 65, a retired botanist from Colorado whose life has always bloomed in vivid shades. She spent decades surrounded by orchids that blushed pink at sunrise, wildflowers that painted the Rockies in bursts of gold, and the rich green canopy of her greenhouse. Her world was never short on color or energy. Yet when she stood in front of her closet, the reflection staring back at her was strangely muted. Rows of beige sweaters, slouchy trousers, and shoes that whispered practical but screamed forgettable. For someone who had lived a life in living color, her wardrobe had become a quiet betrayal, telling a story of invisibility she never intended to write. The turning point came one autumn afternoon. Thalassa was packing for her upcoming high school reunion, carefully folding clothes into a suitcase when it struck her. Not a single piece she owned reflected the vibrant, curious woman she still felt like inside. The clothes in front of her seemed to belong to someone else entirely, someone tired, faded, and cautious. Psychologists call this a style dissonance, when the outer image no longer aligns with inner identity, and it often creates a subtle sense of loss. Thalassa felt that sting deeply. Was she becoming invisible not because of her age, but because of what she wore? Here's the shocking truth. Studies show that women over 60 are often judged more by their clothing choices than by lines on their face. Outdated or shapeless garments can project fatigue even when the spirit inside is energetic and alive. Thalassa realized in that moment that her wardrobe wasn't neutral. It was silently shaping how others saw her and how she saw herself. She decided it was time to reclaim her presence, one swap at a time. Have you ever opened your closet and felt like it belonged to someone else entirely? Share your story in the comments. You may discover you're not alone in this quiet realization. Wardrobe Swap 1, from faded neutrals to living color. Thalassa Merrick had always thought of neutrals as her shield. Beige sweaters, sand-colored blouses, pale peach cardigans. They were safe, dependable, and quiet, the kind of clothing that didn't demand attention. But the problem was, they didn't give any either. Over time, her closet became a museum of washed-out tones, all blending together like faded pages in an old book. She believed they made her look sophisticated, appropriate for her age, but she began to notice something unsettling. The very colors she thought were helping her blend gracefully were, in fact, draining her complexion and dimming her natural presence. This isn't just perception, it's science. Color has a measurable effect on how light reflects off skin. Soft beiges and pastels may look calm on the hanger, but on mature skin they often exaggerate sallowness or uneven tones. A dermatologist once explained that deeper, richer colors, think sapphire blues, emerald greens, ruby reds, bounce light upward, creating the illusion of radiance and vitality. It's not makeup, it's physics. The shade you wear can literally rewrite how your face is lit. For women over 60, this means the right hue can take years off your appearance without touching a drop of foundation. Thalassa's moment of truth came when she finally stepped out of her neutral comfort zone. For her high school reunion, she packed an emerald green scarf almost as an afterthought. It wasn't her usual choice, but something about the richness of the fabric called to her. That night, when she walked into the crowded hotel ballroom draped in emerald, the reaction was instant. An old classmate stopped mid-sentence and said, "You look like you just returned from an adventure." It wasn't about the scarf itself, it was about how the color revealed the vitality she still carried within her. That single piece of fabric reframed her from retired botanist to woman who still has stories to tell. The truth is, most women over 60 underestimate the power of color. In fact, surveys show that nearly 70% of women in this age group default to neutrals because they fear brighter shades will look too loud or inappropriate. But the irony is that muted tones often make them fade into the background, while bold colors highlight their energy. Jewel tones don't scream for attention, they announce it with elegance. They reflect wisdom, depth, and vitality, all qualities women over 60 have in abundance. For Thalassa, the swap wasn't about throwing out every beige blouse overnight. It was about introducing intentional pops of color, a plum wrap dress for evenings, a sapphire scarf to brighten a winter coat, a ruby-toned blouse that made her feel alive at Sunday brunch. Each piece became a small revolution in her closet, a reminder that she didn't need to play it safe to be stylish. Over time, she noticed something else too. Her confidence grew. She stood straighter, smiled wider, and even received more compliments from strangers. That's the hidden truth about color. It doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. Think of it this way. Your wardrobe is a canvas, and every garment is a brushstroke. If the palette is all muted grays and washed out tans, the final picture will feel flat. But add the richness of sapphire, emerald, or plum, and suddenly the portrait comes alive. That's why Wardrobe Swap 1 is so powerful. It's not a trend, it's a transformation. So ask yourself, are the colors in your closet reflecting your vibrancy, or muting it? Have you been hiding behind safe neutrals without realizing they're quietly aging you? The first step to reclaiming your style after 60 isn't about buying something new. It's about daring to choose hues that honor your spirit. Color is just the beginning, though. Thalassa discovered that once you step out of faded tones, the world starts reading your confidence differently. And in the next wardrobe swap, we'll explore how something as simple as your shoes can completely change the story people tell themselves about you before you even say a word. Wardrobe Swap 2, Shoes That Lead the Way. For years, Thalassa Merrick reached for the same plain slip-ons whenever she left the house. They were comfortable, predictable, and kind to her feet. No rubbing heels, no pinched toes. But comfort alone was shaping how people read her before she even said hello. Shoes are never neutral. They signal energy, mobility, and confidence. Researchers in nonverbal communication note that footwear is one of the first details people clock, and snap judgments form in seconds. A shoe choice can magnify your spark or mute it without your consent. Thalassa learned this the hard way at her high school reunion. She walked in proud of her life as a botanist, mountain trails, field journals, greenhouses of color, only to hear a classmate chuckle, "You haven't changed, you still wear those teacher shoes." He meant no harm, yet the words stung. She wasn't a teacher. She was an explorer. But her slip-ons told a smaller story, one that made her look tired and invisible. That night she decided comfort didn't have to equal disappearing. Her swap was simple and transformative. Retire the shapeless slippers, choose low-heeled, supportive shoes with structure and polish. Think block heel pairs in burgundy or navy, softly pebbled leather, a quiet metallic tip. Not sky-high stilettos, not flimsy flats, shoes built for women who still move with purpose. The first morning she wore navy block heels with tailored trousers. The mirror showed posture she hadn't seen in years. Shoulders back. Chin lifted. A longer, steadier stride, energy you could see. That's the hidden power of footwear. Structure alters balance, balance alters stance, stance alters presence. A supportive heel cues the body upright. A polished finish suggests alertness and care. Even sound matters. The assured click against tile announces, "I belong here." The soft shuffle of worn slip-ons murmurs, "Don't notice me." Which soundtrack are your steps playing? There's psychology underneath the polish. In clothed cognition, the idea that what we wear changes how we think and act, shows up in the smallest details. Thalassa felt it instantly. In her new shoes, she said each step carried intention, like punctuation in motion. At her granddaughter's recital, a parent smiled, "You look so put together." The praise rose from the ground up. Here's a practical checklist she swears by now. 1 pair with a block heel 1 to 2 inches high for long days. 1 dressier pair with a subtle sheen for dinners and events. 1 weather-ready pair, rubber-soled, still sleek, for errands and rain. All 3 must pass 3 tests: stable base, secure fit, refined finish. If any fails, it's out. For many women over 60, shoes become an afterthought, hidden under trousers and chosen only for cushioning. Yet they anchor first impressions more than any scarf or bag. Think of the shoes you notice on others. Scuffed sneakers that sag at the heel, or a clean, structured pair that lifts an entire outfit. Footwear tells a story whether you script it or not. Choose the plot. So ask yourself, if someone met only your shoes, what would they learn about you? Curiosity, activity, and presence, or quiet retreat? Thalassa didn't abandon comfort. She elevated it. Her shoes became statements rather than apologies. I still have places to go. I walk with purpose. I belong in full view. And once your foundation speaks clearly, the next question rises naturally. How do you frame the presence above it so your posture and ideas fill the room? That's where the next swap begins. When fabric stops slouching over you and starts building you a frame of authority. Wardrobe Swap 3, the confidence frame. For decades, Thalassa Merrick reached instinctively for cardigans. They were soft, safe, and forgiving, wrapping her in familiarity. But what she didn't realize was that those knits were slowly reshaping her presence. The loose fabric slouched, pulled downward, and made her appear smaller, less assured, almost hesitant. Cardigans whispered comfort, but they also whispered retreat. Clothes don't just cover the body, they broadcast posture, presence, and influence. Here's the truth. Posture is one of the strongest non-verbal cues of confidence, and what you wear directly affects it. Research in body language shows people form judgments of competence in under 10 seconds, often from stance alone. Loose garments encourage slouching, and slouching signals fatigue or disengagement. Structured clothing does the opposite. A tailored blazer, with squared shoulders and clean lines, acts like architecture for the body. It frames, lifts, elongates, and strengthens. This is not about trends, it's the physics of presence. Thalassa put this theory into practice when she was invited to speak at her town's library about wildflower preservation. Normally, she would have arrived in her beige cardigan. Instead, she reached for a navy blazer she had bought years ago and tucked away. The moment she slipped it on, the mirror showed a new reflection. Her head lifted, her back straightened, her shoulders squared. She looked taller, sharper, more commanding, without forcing a thing. The response was immediate. After her talk, a colleague approached and said, "You look like you never left the stage of leadership." The words landed with weight. The blazer hadn't created confidence. It had uncovered what was already there. It reminded her of the woman who once led research teams, guided expeditions, and inspired classrooms. The cardigan had hidden that history. The blazer gave it back to her. Why does this matter so much for women over 60? Because invisibility creeps in silently. At family gatherings, in community meetings, even at casual get-togethers, women can feel themselves fading into the background. A blazer interrupts that process. It doesn't scream, it commands. It reframes the wearer as someone present, vital, and authoritative. It tells the world, this woman is still leading her life with purpose. And the versatility is unmatched. Pair it with jeans, and the look becomes casual chic. Over a dress, it brings polish. With trousers, it signals timeless elegance. Unlike disposable trends, a blazer lasts because it's not about fashion cycles, it's about framing the person inside. Thalassa soon found herself wearing hers often. She wore it to coffee with friends, to dinners, even on errands. And each time, she noticed something consistent. Conversations shifted. People paid closer attention. They listened longer. They treated her as someone who still carried influence. She wasn't speaking louder, trying harder, or pushing more. She was simply being seen. That's the power of the confidence frame. When your clothes structure your body, they also structure your presence. They remind both you and the world that you are not fading, you are evolving. They signal that wisdom, experience, and vitality deserve visibility. So ask yourself, are your clothes shrinking your presence, or are they framing your strength? This isn't about dressing younger. It's about aligning your style with the authority and self-assurance you've earned over decades. But presence isn't only about structure. What about the details that speak before you do? The accents that declare your individuality in an instant? That is the promise of Wardrobe Swap 4, where style stops whispering and starts speaking boldly. Wardrobe Swap 4, jewelry that speaks for you. For years, Thalassa Merrick wore jewelry so delicate it nearly disappeared against her neckline. Tiny chains, thin bands, modest studs. Pieces she thought were subtle and tasteful. But the truth was they weren't saying anything at all. They vanished into the background, just like she sometimes felt in crowded rooms. Jewelry, like shoes or jackets, is more than decoration. It's a signal, a punctuation mark that tells people where to focus and what kind of energy you carry into a space. Most women don't realize it, but jewelry has always been a silent language. Across cultures and history, bold pendants, cuffs, and rings were worn as emblems of courage, status, or belonging. Even today, psychologists studying first impressions note that accessories draw the eye faster than clothing patterns. That means a single piece of jewelry can decide whether your presence fades into the scenery or lingers in someone's memory. Thalassa learned this during a community dinner. She wore her usual soft cardigan and a small gold chain that slipped under the neckline of her blouse. Hardly anyone noticed it, and she blended into the hum of conversation. A week later, she swapped that chain for a bold silver pendant she found in a small artisan shop. The difference was immediate. The pendant caught the light when she moved, resting just where her voice carried across the table. People leaned in. One neighbor even asked, "That necklace, what's the story behind it?" For the first time in years, her jewelry didn't just decorate her. It introduced her. That became her new rule. One statement piece, worn with intention. A wide cuff bracelet with etched designs. A necklace with a pendant that rests at the collarbone. Earrings that frame the face instead of hiding in her hair. Not clutter, not layers of baubles, just one piece strong enough to speak. She described the feeling as wearing a piece of my courage. It wasn't about the cost or sparkle, it was about the message. And the message was powerful. Bold jewelry doesn't only attract attention, it communicates confidence. A pendant says, "Here is a woman who knows her worth." A cuff says, "Here is a woman who has stories to tell." A carefully chosen ring says, "Here is a woman grounded in her identity." These aren't loud shouts. They're steady signals that say, "I am visible, and I intend to be remembered." There's science here too. Studies in consumer psychology reveal that statement accessories boost perceived charisma. People are more likely to recall conversations with someone wearing distinctive jewelry. It creates a visual anchor that makes the person unforgettable. Thalassa discovered this when she wore a turquoise stone to a lecture. Weeks later, someone she barely remembered speaking with greeted her warmly and said, "You're the woman with the turquoise necklace, right? I loved what you shared." The jewelry carried her voice long after she left the room. For women over 60, this swap is about reclaiming presence in subtle but unforgettable ways. Clothing sets the frame, but jewelry directs the gaze. Too little, and you vanish. Too much, and you overwhelm. The sweet spot is one striking piece that feels like part of your personal story. That's what turns jewelry from accessory into statement. So ask yourself, do you have one piece of jewelry that feels like it belongs to your life story? Something that speaks when you walk into the room? If not, it may be time to find it. Because when your jewelry speaks for you, you don't need to work as hard to be seen or remembered. And as Thalassa discovered, once the accents are in place, the final step is not just about how others see you, it's about how you feel every single day. That's the transformation waiting in Wardrobe Swap 5. Wardrobe Swap 5. Dresses that carry you forward. For much of her 60s, Thalassa Merrick avoided dresses. She told herself they were impractical, too revealing, too focused on the body she no longer recognized in the mirror. Layered pants and oversized tops felt safer, less exposed. But safety came with a price. The more she covered herself in heavy fabrics, the more invisible she became. Dresses, she feared, would highlight age. In truth, the right dress does the opposite. It highlights vitality, movement, and grace. When she finally decided to try, she chose a flowing cobalt blue dress tailored just enough to skim her figure without clinging. At first, she hesitated in front of the mirror, tugging at the fabric, expecting to feel self-conscious. But then she walked. The dress moved with her, swaying gently, catching the air as though carrying her forward. It didn't just clothe her, it animated her. Later that evening, at her reunion dinner, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, visible. People looked up when she entered. Compliments came easily. One friend said, "You look radiant, like you're glowing from the inside." The change wasn't magic, it was the psychology of movement. Studies in fashion psychology show that garments with fluid lines enhance the perception of vitality, especially in older adults. Movement in fabric draws the eye, signaling energy and presence. Dresses allow for that in a way stiff trousers or oversized tops rarely do. They don't trap the body, they celebrate it. Wearing a dress also reconnects many women with forgotten parts of themselves. Thalassa remembered the dresses she wore as a young botanist presenting her first research papers, the light summer skirts she packed for trips abroad, the gowns she danced in at family weddings. Rediscovering dresses at 65 wasn't about reliving youth. It was about reclaiming parts of herself she had quietly packed away. Surveys back this up. Women over 60 who incorporate dresses into their regular wardrobe report higher confidence and greater enjoyment in social situations. It isn't about formality. It's about flow, about wearing something that allows the body to move gracefully and the spirit to feel engaged. The lesson Thalassa learned was clear. Pants and layers had been her armor, but dresses became her freedom. They reminded her she was not meant to hide but to move, to live, to be seen. The right dress doesn't just cover you, she told a friend. It sets you free. So ask yourself, when was the last time you wore a dress that made you feel alive? Not younger, not different, just authentically yourself, visible, confident, and at ease in your own skin. That's the final wardrobe swap, letting your clothes carry you forward instead of holding you back. And with all 5 swaps complete, Thalassa's story reminds us that style after 60 is not about disguising age. It's about honoring the life you still live, active, vibrant, and deeply present. When Thalassa Merrick began her journey, her wardrobe told a story of retreat. Faded neutrals dulled her complexion, slippers shuffled her into the background, cardigans slouched over her frame, delicate jewelry disappeared against her neckline, and heavy layers made dresses feel like memories from a younger life. She had not meant to hide, but that's what her clothes were quietly doing. Each piece spoke softly of practicality but never of presence. The swaps changed that. Jewel tones reintroduced vibrancy, making her look as alive as she felt. Structured shoes carried her forward with posture and authority. A blazer reframed her body and her spirit, reminding her she still commanded rooms. Jewelry, worn with intention, spoke her story before she did. And a flowing dress turned movement into visibility, transforming social spaces into places where she felt radiant again. Piece by piece, she built a wardrobe that reflected not decline but renewal. The deeper truth she discovered was this: style after 60 isn't about chasing youth. It isn't about disguising lines on the face or pretending to be someone you are not. It's about alignment, the harmony between who you are inside and what you project outside. When clothes match the wisdom, energy, and courage you carry, they don't just cover you. They amplify you. They remind the world, and yourself, that you are still evolving, still visible, still vibrant. Psychologists studying self-image confirm what Thalassa felt. When appearance and identity are in sync, confidence rises. Confidence fuels engagement. Engagement fuels joy. And joy is what people remember when they see you walk into a room. Thalassa's reunion dinner became proof. Friends who hadn't seen her in decades didn't just notice her clothes, they noticed her energy. They felt her presence, not because she spoke louder, but because she dressed in a way that let her voice, her posture, and her history shine. For women over 60, the lesson is both simple and profound. Your wardrobe is not a museum of safe choices or old habits. It is a mirror of the life you are still living. Choose pieces that frame your confidence, that carry your stories, that let you move freely toward the future. Don't ask, what hides me best? Ask, what makes me feel most like myself today? That question alone transforms closets from archives into doorways. So here is the takeaway. Style is not about age, it's about expression. And expression is ageless. The right choices do more than flatter, they liberate. They remind you that every stage of life deserves elegance, presence, and joy. If this story resonates, don't let it stop here. Tap like, share it with a friend who deserves to feel seen, and subscribe so you never miss the next journey into ageless style. Your closet tells your story. Make sure it tells the story of a woman who still shines brightly, a woman whose steps, presence, and spirit are impossible to ignore. Because elegance doesn't expire, it evolves.